The stagecoach doors creaked open, and Clara Boone didn't move. Her boots hovered over the edge, hesitant above the red dust that clung to everything in this godforsaken place. The driver didn't offer a hand. He just spat to the side and muttered, "Drybell Ridge." Then he flicked the reins and disappeared into the rising heat. Clara adjusted her bonnet. The lace was fraying, the color long drained from the Missouri sun. She stepped down slowly, gripping the satchel tighter than she needed to. Not for what it held, just paper, letters, a book, but for what it didn't. No return ticket. No guarantee. A sign above the station door swung lazily in the breeze. Drybell General Office. Flaked paint, rusted nails. She looked for a friendly face. There were none. Two men in dusters approached. Deputies by the tin stars on their vests, though they looked more like bouncers than lawmen. One was lean, jaw clenching something unspoken. The other was broad and slick-haired, eyes dragging over her like inventory. "You Clara Boone?" the lean one asked. She nodded. "Mr. Hawkins sends his regards, said to bring you straight over." "Over where?" she asked. The fat one grinned. "You'll see." They took her bag without asking. She didn't argue, just followed, slow and careful, like walking into a church you don't believe in. The street was too quiet. A drunk snored against the side of the saloon, boots missing, one eye blackened. A dog barked at nothing and got whipped for it. The wind carried a sour smell, sweat, whiskey, something else. The Rust Pike Saloon towered at the street's end, like a courthouse built by liars. A balcony wrapped its top floor, stained with smoke and faded blood. People gathered there, mostly men, watching, waiting. Inside, piano keys slammed off-tempo. Laughter curled through tobacco haze. Clara was led through the crowd like a prize mule. The men turned to look, some whistled, some just stared. She was taken to the center of the saloon, to a cleared space under a heavy brass chandelier. The deputies stepped back. A hush fell. Then he appeared. Landon Pike. He wore a burgundy waistcoat and a silver bolo tie. His hair was slicked back like he'd never worked a day in dirt, but his hands, those were wrong. Scarred, stained, one knuckle misshapen. A killer's hands in a gambler's suit. "Well now," Pike said, stepping down the staircase with a lion's patience. "Ain't she a fine little daisy?" Clara didn't blink. "I'm Mr. Hawkins," he said with a smile that didn't touch his eyes. "Though that name's more paper than flesh. And you, Miss Boone, you're about to learn how this town handles contracts." The room laughed. A man to her left shouted, "Bet she don't last a week." Another said, "Looks too soft for hard work." Clara said nothing. Pike raised a hand. Silence returned. "You came all this way for a husband, and you'll get one, but not the kind who writes sweet letters and gives you lace. You'll belong to me now, as property." Her throat tightened. Pike's voice turned cruel. "You got one choice. Be my slave or die." The words dropped like iron. Clara's eyes drifted to the faces around her. Men sneering, women looking away. One girl in a corner was crying, shaking, clutching the hem of her skirt. The bartender kept wiping the same glass. She turned back to Pike. "You wrote me letters." "I did," he said. "Lovely ones. My sister helped. You believed every word. You said your land needed love. It needs obedience. You said you lost your wife." He smiled. "I never had one." Clara's breath came steady. "Then why the act?" Pike leaned close, breath sour. "Because I enjoy the fall. Watching hope die. Watching you realize it was all for nothing." Someone in the crowd snorted. Another clapped once, mockingly. Clara's fingers twitched. Pike stepped back, motioned to his men. "Take her upstairs, let her meet the others." She didn't resist. The lean deputy grabbed her elbow, rougher now. As they turned toward the stairs, her foot caught a loose floorboard. She stumbled. Her satchel slipped. The fat deputy bent to grab it. A letter spilled out, one with a dried flower pressed in the fold. The lean deputy picked it up, read a few lines, and laughed. "Look at this. She brought love notes." Clara snatched it back, with sudden speed surprising both of them. "That's mine," she said. "You ain't got anything anymore," the fat one muttered. The letter disappeared into her bodice. Her satchel hung limp now. They led her up the stairs. Each step creaked like an accusation. At the top, the hallway was dim. Two girls passed with trays. Both had black eyes. One flinched when Pike's voice carried up behind them. Clara was pushed into a room, 4 cots, 1 window, 1 bucket. A woman in her 50s looked up from a threadbare quilt. Her left hand was burned raw. "New one?" she asked. "She'll learn," the deputy said, tossing her bag onto a cot. "Or she'll leave in a box." The door slammed. Clara stood still. The burned woman watched her carefully. "What's your name, girl?" Clara didn't answer. "You'll talk soon enough. We all do." She sat on the cot, opened her satchel, moved the book, moved the letters, found what she was looking for, a revolver wrapped in cloth, rusted, but loaded. She held it just long enough to feel the weight, then slid it beneath the mattress. The burned woman's voice was softer now. "You think you can win? They own the sheriff, the preacher, even the undertaker." Clara looked, at her voice even. "Then I guess I'll have to bury them myself." The morning light filtered through the warped glass like dust suspended in water. Clara stood at the window, her fingers pressed against the pane, eyes fixed on the street below. Pike's men were loading crates into wagons, sacks of grain, rifles, something wrapped in burlap that bled at the edges. No one asked questions in Drybell Ridge. Everyone had a reason to keep their head down. Behind her, the sound of quiet breathing. 4 women shared the upstairs room. No names were exchanged, only glances. They knew better than to get attached. One of them, the oldest, Etta, woke with a groan and rolled onto her side, face half covered in the blanket she'd stitched from scraps. Her hands were cracked. One was badly scarred, pink and twisted from fire. "Don't stare so long," Etta muttered. "He notices that." Clara turned from the window. "You've been here long?" she asked. Etta didn't look up. Long enough to know what comes next. She tied her hair back with a string of cloth. Every movement was slow, deliberate. Nothing. Wasted. A knock at the door. Then it opened without waiting. Pike's foreman stood there chewing a twig. His eyes swept the room like counting sheep. "Redhead," he said, pointing at Clara. "Downstairs. The major wants you in the parlor." No one moved. Then Etta gave the faintest nod. Clara stood, smoothing the front of her dress, hiding her clenched fists behind calm gestures. As she passed the other cot, a small girl no older than 16 looked up at her. Big eyes, bruised mouth. Mute, they said. Born that way or silenced after she arrived. No one knew. Clara paused for a second, just enough to let the girl know she saw her. Downstairs, the parlor stank of cigars and spilled bourbon. Pike sat in a chair too big for one man, legs wide, one boot up on the table. He was reading something. Maps, maybe. Land deeds. He didn't. "Look up." "Pour," he said. Clara scanned the room. A silver tray, 3 glasses, a bottle of amber liquid. She didn't hesitate. She poured with steady hands, handed him the drink. He took it, sipped once, then leaned back and looked at her fully. "You carry yourself like a teacher," he said. "I was." "Children?" "Just girls. Sewing. Reading." He nodded. "Shame. Could have stayed soft. But now you're here." She met his eyes. "I made a choice." "You think this was your choice?" His laughter filled the room, sharp and hollow. "There ain't no choices out here, girl. Not real ones. There's what I allow, and what I don't." He gestured at her dress. "Turn." She didn't move. He didn't ask again. Just stared. A long, slow moment passed. Finally, she turned once. Not fast, not slow. Enough to give him what he thought he owned. Pike smiled, cold and quiet. "You'll serve drinks at tonight's table. There's cattle buyers coming through. Don't spill anything." She didn't answer. "Dismissed," he said. Back upstairs, Etta sat sewing. Something frayed beyond repair. Clara walked to her cot, sat down, breathed. "He touch you?" Etta asked without looking. "No." "Then you got time." Clara pulled her satchel closer, checked beneath the mattress. The revolver was still there, unfired, untouched. She pulled out a torn piece of paper, an old train schedule. On the back she began to sketch. The layout of the house, the doors, the exits. How many steps from the front to the kitchen? How long it took the guards to change shifts? The mute girl, Maya, Etta had called her, crawled closer. She looked down at the sketch, tapped twice where the cellar door would be. Clara looked up. "You been down there?" Maya nodded. "What's in it?" Maya raised her fingers. 2, then 3, then drew a line across her neck. Clara's face hardened. "Prisoners?" Etta's voice cut in. "Dead girls, the ones who didn't learn fast enough." That night, Clara served whiskey to men who laughed like jackals and slapped her thigh when she passed. She didn't spill a drop. She smiled when they looked. She listened when they talked. One of them, a railman from Santa Fe, spoke about the Union Pacific line stretching toward the mountains. Another bragged about hanging 4 Apaches in one day. Another asked Pike how much he wanted for the girl. Pike just laughed and said, "You can rent her for the night, but she's mine in the end." The men roared. Clara's eyes didn't change. When they were drunk enough, she slipped away. Back upstairs, she waited until the hallway emptied. She took the revolver and wrapped it in cloth again, placing it into her satchel. She moved it to the chamber pot, a place no one would look, just in case. In the cot beside her, Etta whispered, "He'll break you if you wait too long." "He already broke me," Clara said. "Now I'm learning how to break back." The next day brought a sandstorm. Windows were nailed shut, the streets emptied. Even Pike stayed inside. Clara used the chaos. She asked to clean the study. Pike waved her off with a grunt. She cleaned carefully, slowly, then unlocked the drawer with a pin from her hair. Inside, a Confederate saber, 2 loaded pistols, and a velvet pouch with 6 gold coins. More important than gold, a ledger. Names, dates, payments. She flipped through. Boone, Samuel, 50 acres seized, 3 days chained, execution by hanging. Her hand froze. She stared at the page until the lines blurred. Then she tore it out and tucked it into her dress. The door creaked. She turned. Pike stood there watching her. "You steal from me?" "No," she said quickly. He stepped closer. "You lie." He grabbed her arm. Her heart slammed against her ribs. Then a voice from the hall, one of the buyers yelling for more whiskey. Pike hesitated. He let go. "Tomorrow night," he said. "We'll talk more. Privately." She didn't move until he left. Then she breathed. In the corner, Maya watched wide-eyed. Clara knelt beside her and whispered, "We leave tomorrow, one way or another." Maya tapped the revolver's hiding spot, then put her hand over Clara's. The wind howled outside like wolves, and inside Clara Boone counted the bullets. The fire in the hearth hissed low, casting long shadows over velvet walls and animal heads nailed as trophies. Clara walked across the parlor floor like it was glass beneath her boots. Behind her, whispers curled through the air, men in suits, talking cattle and coin. But every now and then, someone would glance her way, hungry like they were appraising meat. Pike lounged in the big chair again, a glass of rye in one hand, his boots muddy from the stockyard. He didn't nod, didn't speak, just let her walk in like she already knew what to do. She poured drinks. She smiled. She took every hand that tried to linger and turned it away with careful, wordless poise. One man asked her name. She didn't answer. Another asked where she was from. She lied and said, Arkansas. Pike just chuckled into his glass. Later, after the noise rose and the laughter turned sour, Pike raised his voice. Gentlemen, shall we retire to cards? Or are we more in the mood for something entertaining? Someone shouted. I say we let the new one sing. More laughter. Clara didn't move. Pike tilted his head at her. She held his gaze and said nothing. That seemed to please him even more. You'll serve upstairs. Private room, just us tonight, he said. She nodded and walked away. In the hallway, Etta waited near the staircase, wiping her hands with a cloth that had once been white. They said you held your own. Clara didn't slow. I need the key to the cellar. You looking? To die faster. I need to know what's under this house. Etta looked away, then handed her a small brass key wrapped in a strip of leather. 2 turns. If it sticks, don't force it. Just listen. She waited until the house settled into its nighttime stillness, the kind of silence that only meant bad things were about to start. Then she crept down the back stairwell and into the root cellar. The key turned. The door opened with a soft groan. It smelled of salt and blood. Lantern in hand, Clara stepped into the cold. Iron rings hung from the walls, bones in the corner, ropes, stained dark, old shoes, a doll's head. She didn't cry, she didn't breathe. On the far wall, scratched into the stone, were names. Dozens. She ran her fingers over them, then stopped at one. Anna Boone. Her stomach dropped. Her little sister, missing for 7 years, gone after a trip into town with a neighbor. Sheriff called it wandering off. No one looked hard. The name was scratched low, as if carved, by someone kneeling. A date followed. 1 week after Anna disappeared, Clara reached into her pocket, took out the revolver. She whispered aloud, I swear to you, Anna, I'll bring it down brick by brick. Upstairs, a bell rang. Pike was calling. She returned the key, changed dresses, cleaned her hands, then walked into the upstairs room where Pike and 2 other men sat around a felt table playing cards. Whiskey, gold coins, a pistol sat between the chips. She poured drinks, moving slowly. Pike watched her every step. One of the men leaned back and said, How much for the quiet ones like her? Pike answered, Too much for you. Clara reached for Pike's glass, topping it off. As she leaned in, her eyes flicked to the table, ace of spades, pistol half-cocked, 2 bullets in the chamber. Pike pulled her down onto his lap, like she weighed nothing. His voice was low in her ear. You're trying to figure me out. Wondering what made me like this. Wondering if there's anything human left. She didn't speak. He smiled. There isn't. She reached for his glass again, let her fingers brush the rim. Her thumb pressed slightly, just enough to leave the trace of something she'd added earlier in the kitchen. A crushed root, bitter, fast-acting. He downed the drink in 1 swallow. The game continued. 10 minutes later, Pike's words began to slur. His head tilted slightly. He rubbed his eyes. Clara took a step back. The other 2 men noticed. You all right, Major? He waved them off, but his hand trembled. He stood suddenly, knocking the chair over, pointing at her. You did something. Clara froze. His face twisted and he lunged. She ducked fast. His fist hit the wall. He staggered. The other men stood, unsure what to do. "Lock her down," Pike shouted, before vomiting onto the floor. Guards rushed in. Clara didn't resist. She let them drag her down the hall, past the room, past Etta's stair, down to the cellar. They threw her in, slammed the door. Darkness. She sat in that silence, gun still strapped to her thigh. She waited. Upstairs, Pike wouldn't die. She hadn't used enough. But now he knew. Her time was burning. The next morning, the guards came down with torches. They opened the door, slow, cautious. She stood, hands raised. "You gonna behave?" one asked. Clara nodded. They dragged her back upstairs, into a back parlor. Pike was waiting. He looked pale, angry. A scar on his temple she hadn't seen before. "I should cut your tongue out," he said. She said nothing. "But I won't. You want a war? Then we'll have one." He leaned in close. "But when I kill you, I'll make sure you remember it." She was escorted back to her room. That night Maya came to her. She brought a hairpin and a folded map torn from Pike's desk, marked in red. The trail to the canyon, marked in blue, a shack at the edge of the bluff. Clara unfolded it, hand shaking. Maya tapped it twice, then pointed to the window. Clara met her eyes. "Tomorrow," she said, "before the sun." She slid the revolver from the chamber pot, unwrapped it, checked the cylinder. 5 bullets, one for each name on the wall, and maybe one left for herself. A crow screamed once from the rooftop before taking flight. Clara crouched in the alley behind the saloon, her hands blackened with soot, her dress soaked at the hem with old wine and water. Dawn had not yet touched the mountains. Dry Bell Ridge was still asleep, except for the rats, the wind, and the 2 girls creeping across the yard behind the smokehouse. Maya ran ahead, nimble despite bare feet. Clara moved slower, one arm pressed to her ribs where bruises ached from Pike's last outburst. Every breath stung like cracked glass, but she didn't stop. The key Etta had slipped her was clenched in her fist, sharp edges digging into her palm, blood mixing with sweat. The barn stood quiet at the edge of the property, its roof sloped like a drunken spine. Pike's horses slept inside, snorting softly, tails flicking. More important than horses, what lay below, the locked door behind the feed barrels. Pike had used it once in the dead of night, dragging a girl by her hair. Clara moved the barrels. Maya kept watch. The key clicked once, twice. The door creaked inward. The smell struck first, iron, rot, mildew. She lit the match, shielding it. With her hand, a dirt staircase spiraled down. Chains hung from hooks, the walls were damp, carved earth. And at the end of the tunnel, 3 wooden cages, only one was occupied. A man, rail-thin, sunken eyes, beard gone gray, stared back like he didn't believe she was real. She stepped forward. He blinked, confused. "You're not real," he rasped. "I am." He crawled to the bars, coughing. "They said I died in '69. Sheriff told my wife they buried me." Clara opened the latch. "Who are you?" he asked. She didn't answer. The man hobbled to his feet. Clara turned to Maya. "Get him. Water, then hide." Boots crunched outside, voices, a door slammed. The silence between steps was too short. Clara raised the revolver. 5 bullets. No time to think. The first guard opened the cellar door and caught the bullet in his mouth before he could shout. He dropped hard, torch clattering beside him. The second came down swinging a lantern. Clara rolled to the left. He kicked her in the ribs, knocking the wind out. She fired blind, caught him in the leg. He screamed. Maya struck his head with a stone. He fell. Clara pulled herself up, panting. The rescued man stared at the carnage. "Jesus Christ, can you ride?" she asked. He nodded weakly. "Then we run." They made it to the corral under gray light. 3 horses. Clara picked the quietest mare, helped the man mount, tied Maya's scarf tight around the saddle, horn so she could hold steady. She mounted another and turned for one last look. Smoke. The brothel windows flickered with early flame. Etta. The fire had begun. They galloped hard down the dry path toward the canyon trail. Bullets tore the air behind them, but they didn't turn back. Not once. When they reached the old shack, the sun was clawing up the ridge. Clara kicked open the door. Inside, dust, broken glass, a bed frame rusted to the floor, and a buried lockbox beneath the hearth. She dug with her bare hands until her knuckles bled. The box held papers, a tin badge, a picture of her father. She pulled it out, his name scratched on the back. Samuel Boone, U.S. Deputy, died 1866. Her chest heaved. You know him? The old man asked. She nodded. He was my father. He stared. He was mine too. She froze. The man wiped his eyes. They called him a traitor, said he helped the wrong people. They hung him to send a message. Clara lowered the revolver. The canyon wind howled through the cracks. You're my brother, she whispered. He nodded. The boy he sent away before the raid. Changed my name. Been hiding ever since. Maya peeked out the window. Riders. Fast. Closing in. Clara grabbed the papers and shoved them into a satchel. We need to scatter. Her brother looked weak. I can't ride far. You don't have to. You'll go north with Maya. What about you? I've got business back in town. You'll die. I'll make sure he goes first. She stepped outside, loading fresh rounds. 4 left. The riders stopped just beyond the shack. Pike dismounted slowly. He raised a hand, called out, You think you've changed anything, Clara? She didn't answer. You burned my girls. You stole from me. You think you've won? She stepped forward. He laughed. You've got 1 gun, I've got 10 men. You're alone, Pike. He paused. Behind her, torches lit on the ridge. Townsfolk, one by one, shadows stepped forward. Etta, the bartender, 3 women once silent, now armed with blades, hammers, even broom handles. Pike turned. What is this? He shouted. No one answered. Clara raised her revolver. This is justice, the slow kind. He drew. She fired. His shoulder snapped back. His pistol fell. He dropped to his knees. She walked forward, stared down at him. You hanged my father. You bought my sister. You broke this town. He looked up, bleeding. So what now? You kill me? She lowered the revolver. No, she said. You live long enough to feel it. She stepped back. Let the others pass her. The mob moved slow. Pike tried to run. He didn't make it far. Clara turned toward the canyon. Maya was waiting. So was the wind. So was a new name for Drybell Ridge. The morning after Pike bled in the dirt, Drybell Ridge didn't quite know what to do with itself. The saloon stood empty, its windows blackened from smoke and glass punched through by rocks. The piano had stopped playing. The girls were gone. The streets, once patrolled by Pike's men in long coats and short tempers, were quiet now, except for boots walking with purpose and rifles being leaned by doorframes. The preacher rang no bell. The sheriff sat on his porch, hat off, badge turned inward. Clara stood at the edge of the well, wrapping her hand slowly around the crank. She didn't pull it yet. The bucket hung suspended halfway, neither in the dark nor in the light. Beside her, Maya sipped from a tin cup, watching the rooftops. No words had passed between them since they returned. None were needed. The townsfolk hadn't stopped her. When she rode back in with blood on her boots and ash in her hair, no one moved. Not even the shopkeeper who once charged her double. They looked down, or they looked away. Some nodded. One man, the old blacksmith, removed his hat. That was all. Etta was waiting inside the burned brothel. Only the back room had survived the fire. She sat on a stool, washing her own bandaged hand with whiskey and spit. "You should leave," she said. Clara leaned against the doorframe. "I will. Not just from here. From this thing you've become." Clara looked at the wall. Names were burned into the beam. She didn't speak. Etta's voice hardened. "You don't kill a man like Pike without planting seeds in the ground. His kind grows in the shadows, always has. He's gone." Etta shook her head. He was just one vine. Later, Clara found Sheriff Jeb Calder at the edge of the cemetery. He was drunk, boots off, pistol in his lap. A tiny wooden cross was stuck in the dirt beside him, unmarked. He didn't look up. "I heard you spared him." "No." He glanced over. "I made him live long enough to die a coward," she said. Jeb grunted. "That's worse. You gave me the map. I gave you a choice. That was all." He took a long drink. "I once thought I could clean this town. Knew Pike was rotten, knew what he did to girls, knew what he did to your father. I still sat on that bench, still took his coin. Then why help me? Because I saw your eyes when you stepped off that stagecoach. You didn't look scared. You looked like you already knew." Clara nodded once. "There's talk," Jeb continued. "Marshals coming from Abilene. Couple Pinkertons, too. Word spread fast. Let them come. They ain't coming to thank you." "I didn't ask for thanks." He raised the bottle. "That's the damn truth." That night, Clara stood in the street alone. The stars above were clear, wind brushing low across the dust. Every house on Main Street had its curtains closed. A few had candles burning inside, but no one dared open a door. She lit the last lantern from the chapel, the same one her father once held high when he patrolled these roads for justice instead of profit. She carried it to the gallows Pike built in the middle of the square, hung rebels there, hung her father. She placed the lantern at the base, and then she waited. A rider came at dawn, not a marshal, not a lawman, just a boy, maybe 16, skinny and hard-eyed. He carried a letter. "For Clara Boone," he said. She took it, broke the seal. The paper was folded in half, torn at the edges. Ink bled from haste. "Your name is known, but your name is not safe. Drybell was not the end. We are coming for what you lit. Justice is not yours to deliver. It is ours." There was no name, only a mark, a triangle inside a circle. Clara folded the note, burned it without reading it again. She walked to the edge of town where the horses were kept, saddled one, and checked her satchel. The revolver. The ledger. One bullet left. Maya approached, holding out a bundle wrapped in cloth. "What is it?" Clara asked. Maya opened it. Inside, Anna's necklace, the one she wore the day she vanished. Clara took it slowly, tracing the small glass pendant with her finger. Maya pointed east. "She's alive?" Maya shrugged, then tapped her chest, then tapped Clara's. "She's part of me." Clara looked down, closed her hand around the necklace. "I carry her now," she whispered. They rode out by sunrise. Clara didn't say goodbye. She left no letter, no grave, just the bullet, the memory, and the trail stretching into morning. Somewhere past the horizon, another town rotted in silence. Somewhere the vines were still growing, and somewhere ahead, someone else was waiting to say, "Be my slave or die." Clara was bringing the answer. The storm didn't come from the sky. It came on horseback. By the time Clara saw the dust on the far ridge, she already knew they weren't traders. No cattle, no wagons. Just 6 riders cutting a perfect V across the horizon, their coats black, hats pulled low, faces hidden behind sun-split scarves. They rode like men who knew time wasn't a luxury. And they didn't ride toward towns. They rode through them. She had 1 hour. The wind carried heat with it, the kind that didn't come from the sun. Drybell Ridge had barely started to breathe again after the fire. The brothel was now a soup kitchen. The saloon served coffee. Pike's old estate sat empty, windows boarded like eyes that had seen too much. Some wanted to burn it down. Clara told them to leave it. Warnings are better left standing. She saddled her horse with slow, steady hands. Maya brought the rifle, wrapped in old burlap. No words passed between them. The scar under Clara's collarbone ached like a whisper. Her hand went once to the satchel. One bullet left. No backup. No promise of survival. Only the trail she had, lit behind her, and the reckoning riding in on it. When the riders hit the main road, people disappeared. Shutters slammed. Fathers pulled daughters inside. One man dropped his hammer and ran behind the church. These weren't the kind of men you fought with law. These were the kind that rewrote it. They rode right to the square, where the gallows still stood, just a skeleton now. The lead rider dismounted without a word. His coat carried a symbol burned into the back, a circle, triangle within, the same mark that came on the letter. He didn't look at Clara right away. He looked at the rope still coiled on the beam above. "You left him to bleed like a dog," he said, voice like gravel over steel. She stayed silent. "You think that makes you right?" She let the words hang in the air like smoke. Another rider stepped forward, younger, nervous. "Mum," he said cautiously, "you've interfered with federal bounty operations. The man you killed was protected by our ring. He bought girls, burned men alive, hung my father. He paid." "Not enough." The leader stepped closer, removed his glove. The hand beneath was missing 2 fingers. "He gave us 10 years of names, 10 years of coin. You tore that ledger apart when you lit his blood in the street." Clara pulled the paper from her satchel. The ledger, torn pages, names, amounts. She dropped it in the dirt. One of the riders dismounted, moved to collect it. The leader stopped him. "Let her burn it. Let her feel the power she thinks she has." Clara knelt, struck a match. The flame caught instantly. The ledger crackled, ink running like veins in fire. She stood. "You want my blood too?" she asked. "No," the leader said, stepping forward. "I want you to understand that this world doesn't need justice. It needs order." She looked him in the eye. "That's what he said before I put him in the ground." The shot came fast. A warning. Dirt exploded near her boots. Clara didn't flinch. She reached under her coat. The revolver rose, slow and steady. 6 riders, 1 bullet, and not for them, for the one watching. A face had appeared behind a curtain. A child's face, wide-eyed, afraid, like Anna once was. Like Maya had been. The men circled. "You sure you want to be a martyr for a town that still fears your name?" Clara holstered the revolver. "I don't want to be a martyr." The leader raised his pistol. "I want to be the ghost that keeps you from sleeping." She threw down the revolver. The crowd gasped. The lead man hesitated, then stepped forward, picking it up. He turned it in his hand. Old, rusted, empty. He looked at her. "You weren't even planning to kill." "No," she said, "just planning to walk away alive." He raised the pistol again. That's when the shot rang out, not from Clara, from the church steeple. The leader's shoulder exploded in a red mist. He screamed, dropped the weapon. Jeb Calder stood above them, rifle still smoking. "I waited too damn long to do what was right," he called out. Chaos broke. The riders scattered, drawing guns. Clara dove, rolled behind the well. Maya threw a stone. It hit one man square in the temple. Another rider fired blind into the saloon window. A bullet clipped the edge of the bell. Etta stepped out with a shotgun, aimed, and took the leg off a horse mid-stride. By the time the dust cleared, 2 men were dead. 1 fled east, 2 surrendered. The leader bled in the square, groaning, hand pressing hard to his shoulder. Clara walked over. You said justice wasn't mine to deliver, she said. He spat. She knelt beside him. Then give me a name. He hesitated. She pressed her hand on his wound. He howled. A name! He gave her one, a town, a man, a system, bigger than Pike, older, colder. She stood. Maya approached, placing the revolver back in her palm. One bullet, Clara said. Maya pointed east. Clara didn't say goodbye to Jeb, or Etta, or the town. The child behind the curtain watched her ride out. No songs played, no cheers rose, but a quiet followed her steps, and the wind behind her carried only one sound, the long breath of a town that had started, at last, to breathe again.